Welcome back, CA football fans, to another episode of This Week in CA Football, presented by Geico. I'm Bobby Broyles, joined always by my pal Tim McDonald. Tim, I know this past Saturday was a day our league won't forget for a long time with the amount of excitement and exposure that came from Harrisonburg. First on College game day, and then a thrilling battle between JMU and Richmond.
I'll start with game day, and an extremely long day, but you know what? It was extremely worth it. I would do it all over in a heartbeat again. Just an absolutely amazing atmosphere. JMU fans, just huge clap to you guys. Showed up and showed out. I mean, not kidding when we heard from game day staffers that said that was maybe the best atmosphere they've ever witnessed in the history of the show, which is saying a lot. Of course, I know it's a disappointing, the way that game turned out later. The game still had to be played later that evening. But again, I mean, I don't know what else you take away from that game. The game day atmosphere, I had JMU fans coming up to me, giving me shout-outs. I saw Vad Lee's mom in the crowd. Everyone had signs. It was just a great atmosphere, a great day for CA football. But again, the story of the day has to be not only the game day atmosphere, but Richmond, what they did to James Madison. We've talked all season long about Richmond. Coming into this game, really a lot of unknowns. And Kyle Lauletta and Jacoby Green proved to CA football that they're here to play. Green had over 230-plus yards, 5 touchdowns rushing, and that Richmond offense, you never knew when they were going to pass or run the ball. Did such a good job of play call control. Who'd have thought Richmond would be able to put up 59 points on JMU, and JMU wouldn't be able to keep up. Of course, another tough loss. Injury news, we see Vad Lee leave the game, and of course, later this week we find out. I mean, just an absolutely tough year for injuries.
It's been rough, yes.
It's part of the game, we know, but it's absolutely stinks when some of your best players in the conference are out for the season.
And in the country, too.
And looking around the rest of the league, William & Mary continued to roll, picked up non-conference win over Hampton at home, and Delaware. Just absolutely mind-boggling. They don't need to pass the ball.
No, they don't.
You know what they're going to do, and they do. They do. They run all over New Hampshire, pick up a huge win. They don't win in that series a lot, especially at home, but they got it done. Kudos to Delaware, and that game plan was awesome. Towson now, 2 straight wins. The standings now, it's just such an interesting, you look up, don't forget Maine, 3-1 in CA football. They only have 3 wins on the year, but you know what? That 3 wins in conference play, that's all that matters. Up and down this conference right now, there's a lot of teams who, at the beginning of the year, we thought, okay, maybe they would, but no, they're down at the bottom, and a bunch of other teams right now are still lurking in the weeds. So, again, game day was the huge story, deservedly so, but Richmond comes away stealing the headlines with an absolutely huge win at Madison.
Indeed. Now looking ahead to Week 9, it will be a special weekend in CA football for reasons that go far beyond football. Be the Match Saturday will be taking place at all 6 CA football games. Fans at the games and watching on TV will have a chance to learn more about bone marrow donations that fight blood cancer such as leukemia. Tim, this has been an effort many of our schools have gotten behind in the past, and now the entire league is joining the fight.
It's going to be awesome, especially if you're watching at home. You're going to see all the coaches wearing special patches, and this is such an important cause off the league. Andy Talley at Villanova, I know, maybe not the forefather across the league, but he's one of the founding fathers to get this started at their schools. Fans at the games and at home, you're going to learn more about what this means to the conference and what this means to these schools. You look at players who've been affected by this. We've seen Villanova players such as Jake Pruss, who's been a player. We saw John Carpenter last year, William & Mary, who is also a match and a donor. We've seen Matt Caesar in the past. So again, people who aren't familiar with exactly what's going on in Be the Match, you're going to find out. I don't want to give too much away because we're going to be all over social media, but we'll be all over throughout the games. You're going to find out a lot of information about making impacts off the football field that are important to this league and important to a lot of people in this conference.
And speaking of Be the Match, CA football on social media, shout out from Mia Hamm.
Yeah, I saw that. Mia Hamm gave a shout out for Be the Match Saturday. Especially if you're on social media, take a look at what's going on around the conference.
So let's get to Saturday's games while we're at it, beginning with the doubleheader of nationally televised action on the NBC Sports Network and NBC Sports Live Extra. It starts in Williamsburg at 4 o'clock as William & Mary hosts JMU. Another FCS game of the week here, Tim.
The fates of the FCS guys are surely looking down on this one and laughing and saying, wow, JMU, you know what? You just lost badly. You just lost your first game of the season. You know what? You got to go to William & Mary.
Nationally televised.
And here's William & Mary. What have the Tribe done since then? You look at that loss to Delaware. Okay, what have they done? Reeled off a couple of straight wins. You look at Anderson. He's just been the story of the league, rushing-wise. Kendall Anderson, of course, I'm talking about William & Mary running back. 896 yards. I think he could break 1,000 in this game. Unless JMU has an answer on defense. And this is a James Madison defense. 720 yards, Bob. The most yards allowed by a Madison defense. You know Coach Withers all week long has been looking at that defense and reminding them about that game against Richmond. Like I mentioned, Richmond just attacked JMU in all the phases. You know, play action was huge. Expect William & Mary to try to do the same. We don't know. Devontae Dedmon last week versus Hampton got injured. I'm not sure. I think he's going to be a game-time decision. I guess we'll find out on that one. But William & Mary's defense, slowly and surely, Bob, I know we called them out a little bit earlier in the season, but slowly and surely that defense has been growing speed and growing confidence each week.
Yep.
And now we're going to get a look at a new James Madison offense. No bad lead. Let's just look at number 51 total touchdowns in his career. That's just in, a year and a half, maybe a little bit more than that?
Yep.
It's, of course, unfortunate. We know Vad Lee's done, but Brian Shore is going to get the chance to take over the offense. We saw what he did last week. Came in, he didn't have the deer in the headlights when he came into the game. Had a rushing touchdown, also led JMU to a passing touchdown. But again, Madison's defense has to show up this week. Can't give up as many yards, obviously, as they did last week. I think the story of the game is going to be Christian Reeves and that wide receiver core for William & Mary. Reeves averages 21 yards per catch, and Steve Cluley, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's going to be huge. JMU and William & Mary, though, anything can happen in this rivalry. Again, nationally televised game. What else can you ask for on a Saturday afternoon?
Indeed. Following that contest on NBCSN again at 7:30, Maine heads to Philly to take on Villanova.
This is one that we said early in the year. I distinctly remember sitting in this chair and talking to you. Maine, going to Nova 2 years ago, they won that game. And it's a little bit, the stakes have turned a little bit. You look at Maine entering this game, like I said before, 3-4 overall, but those 3 wins have come in CAA football play. 3-1 in CAA football play right now. Villanova 2-2 in CAA football play. Nova lost a tough game last week. Zach Bednarczyk threw 2 pick-sixes. Again, 421 yards of offense, so you have to be happy, especially against Towson. Matt Gudzik played a little bit better last week, the running back. Career-high 96 yards, but again, now I look at Maine, and you see Drew Belcher, who is technically the backup quarterback, if you want to call him that. But Maine, you're going to see Maine have to pull out wins like they did last week. 3 field goals from Sean DeClue, who might be the best kicker in the league besides Peter Yoder. 1 defensive score. We saw Trevor Bates, your guy, gets it done again. Defensive player of the week. But again, Maine is going to have to win gritty games like this. Drew Belcher might be the option on offense. 11 of 16 passing, 109 yards. Also had 65 yards rushing and a score. So I think he gives them a little bit more of an element of surprise, especially at the quarterback position. Right now, Maine's defense has the edge, which we didn't think coming in would be the case versus Villanova. Again, remember, Maine went to Nova 2 years ago, won by 2 points with Marcus Wasilewski at the helm.
Oh, yeah.
Villanova remembers that one, I think, too. Villanova has a slight edge playing at home, but right now, Maine's defense has the edge, which we didn't think coming in the year would be possible.
Earlier in the day at noon, Elon, fresh off a much-needed bye week, visits Stony Brook on the American Sports Network and CA.TV.
Interesting game because, Stony Brook needs to show some life, and I know it's easier said than done, and I know it's tough. Looking at the way they started the season, 2-4 now, 1-4 in CA football play. I know no one's happy by that. I know the players are upset. I know it's not the way they want to, but, at the other hand, you look at Elon coming off the bye week. Stony Brook has a 4-game losing streak. I think this is their best chance right now to snap it. During that streak, they've been outscored 103-44. Elon, though, talk about the schedule that Elon's faced. They've faced 3 straight top 20 opponents before this bye week, so couldn't have come at a better time for Rich Crosby and crew. Right now, these teams are struggling on offense. SPU scoring D, still 19.7 points per game. Yes. You can't be angry with that. You have to be happy with that, which is number 2 in CA football. Elon, 12th in total offense, 241 yards per game. So I think right now Stony Brook's defense is angry and saying, hey, if you're not going to get it done, we're going to produce for you. I think that's the case right now. Elon going on the road this week, I think it's going to be hard even after the bye.
Then at 1, New Hampshire returns home to take on Rhode Island, which is coming off a bye week as well.
Some people are talking about this game and saying, New Hampshire's been here before a couple years back. Remember when they made? I don't know. This is a different scenario. It's not the same type of feeling. You look at this New Hampshire team, 3-4 overall, 1-3 in CAA football. Rhode had a bye week. Interesting. Rhode and New Hampshire, they've played such a long series all time, but unfortunately for Rhode, New Hampshire's always taken care of business when Rhode has come to town in Durham. Rhode hasn't won in Durham since 1995. New Hampshire's just owned the series, especially, and we know New Hampshire how well they play at home this year. Let's remember, this is only New Hampshire's 3rd home game of the season. So you're looking at a team right now that on defense couldn't get it done last week in the second half at Delaware. Went into the half leading Delaware and just really needed to stop the run, and they couldn't do it. This is a team in New Hampshire, too, offensively. When's the last time you saw a New Hampshire team have less than 200 yards of total offense? It's been a head-scratcher of a little bit of this UNH team. Interestingly enough, I'm going to look to Rhode running back Harold Cooper, not just because, he is the go-to guy on offense, but he is the all-purpose leader in CAA football. Harold Cooper, 163.5 all-purpose yards per game. He's going to be huge in the return game. And the guy right behind him, all-purpose yards, we've talked about him many times throughout, for New Hampshire especially, but Dalton Crossan is right behind him for all-purpose yards. Rhodey's 0-4 on the road this season. New Hampshire is 2-0 at home, so I'm giving the edge to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to think about New Hampshire's schedule because, you think about the playoff streak. It's just something with this team in the last couple of years when they've got to 4 losses and had their back against the wall, they've been able to answer it. We're going to find out in these next 2 weeks. They have to get past Rhode Island first, and then let's not forget, national televised game versus Richmond next week, so the stakes only get higher. New Hampshire needs to figure out things on both sides of the ball, not just one side of the ball.
Delaware heads to Towson at 2 o'clock on CA.TV. This rivalry has produced some classics over the years. We were at the game 2 years ago. I still can't get over.
How did I know Bobby Royals was going to bring up that
sorry,
game? You still don't believe that game finished that way.
I still can't believe the.
Of course, he's talking about 2 years ago
at Towson.
Yes.
The
national championship run for Towson.
Exactly.
Towson's up 17 plus points. Bottom line, Delaware came back in that one, Bob, and just pulled out a rabbit out of the hat.
Same guy covers the onside kick, scores the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. I mean, are you kidding me? That was amazing.
I look at this Towson team riding a 2-game winning streak. The defense has been the answer for me. It's been like, hey, we got shown up versus JMU on TV. Okay, well, we want to prove to people that we're still pretty good. Rush defense, number 3 in CA football, 125 yards per game, only 8 touchdowns allowed. Victor and Frazier are the 2 leading rushers for Towson, so we know what they're going to do on offense. I look at Brian Dowling, the wide receiver for Towson, had a couple of good games back and forth for Towson. That rush defense for Delaware, I think, has been the biggest surprise for me. You look at the way they handled New Hampshire last week. They just don't give up big chunks of yards. Up front, they really shut down New Hampshire. And up front all season long, it's been a couple of young guys for Delaware's front that just have got the job done. Pass offense, like I said, Bob, 74.6 yards per game, 2 total touchdowns on the year. So what do you think Towson's going to try to stop this week? We say it every week, but you know what? Thomas Jefferson and Kareem Williams are going to get the carries.
Yes, they are.
They're going to eat. And we know by the second half that they get hungry and they want the rock. 6 touchdowns for Jefferson, 2 touchdowns for Williams. But again, on the other hand, Jefferson, 87 yards per game, Williams, 88 yards per game. Time of possession is going to be huge. If Connor Frazier and Darius Victor, we know they like to hold on to the ball too, Towson. If they can hold on to the ball, sustain drives, and score points like they had the last 2 weeks, they got a chance in this one. But Delaware, 34-plus minutes per game, time of possession leads CA football. I think that's going to be huge. Ultimately, Towson's defense, another huge question coming to this game. Can they stop the run of Delaware? I think they're up for the task, especially playing at home. I think that's going to be huge.
Yep, indeed. And if it's been any like the last 2 matchups at Delaware last year, came right down the wire. I have a feeling it's going to be another one. Last-second victory for someone on Saturday. We wrap up Week 9 in Richmond as the Spiders look to ride the momentum of that big win over JMU when they play host to Albany at 3:30 for homecoming. Now at Richmond goes to JMU's homecoming, and they get to come home for
Very
homecoming.
strange. It's almost like, I don't know who was bashed more last week, Todd McShay or just no one having any faith in Richmond beating James Madison. And it's insane to think about just game day leading up to it. You knew Lee Corso was probably going to pick JMU at home. And what does Richmond do? I mean, we talked about it. Just the amount of plays, the amount of offensive explosion that Richmond showed last week. Let's forget, Seth Fisher was in street clothes. He didn't even play. Jacoby Green was the starting running back. Okay, he gets all the carries. What does he do? 5 touchdowns, 230-plus yards. Kyle Lauletta had a 79-yard touchdown pass. It's just Brian Brown and Reggie Diggs were just all over the place. We never give shout-outs to offensive coordinators, and that's maybe our fault sometimes too. But Charlie Fisher and Danny Rocco, the offensive game plan that they had last week, I thought was absolutely thriller. The way they set that up and the way they planned Richmond's offensive execution, again, no disrespect to Albany coming to town this week, but it's a really tough task. I know Albany's had a bye week. I think right now Albany is still struggling to find its offensive identity. We've seen Crook struggle at times. We've seen the rush game struggle at times. But the good news is for Albany, if there's any time you want to play Richmond, it's probably after a win like that at James Madison. We've seen Richmond, too, the last time they were at home a couple weeks ago against Elon. Struggled a little bit to put that game away when they could have done it. So, again, if you're Albany coming into this game, what else do you have to lose? If you're Richmond, on the other hand, you're now in the driver's seat, and all eyes are on you.
Indeed. So CAFootball.com has links to watch the live streams and live stats from each Week 9 game. And as a reminder, CA.TV will have a live simulcast of ASN's broadcast of Elon at Stony Brook.
As Bobby mentioned earlier, it is Be The Match Saturday, so on social media, you can follow us on Twitter at CAFootball, on Instagram at CAFootball, and on Snapchat at CAFootball. Of course, the hashtag for the league is hashtag CAAFB. Be the Match Saturday, we're going to be retweeting content that we've created from coaches at Media Day.
Yep.
I know we'll be throwing back stories from on-campus trips that we've done regarding Be the Match. So again, it's a huge Saturday. It's a huge week across the conference, not only for a great cause, but it's really, there's some good games too.
There is some good games.
A lot of content is going to be created on social media. Again, if you're not following us, something's wrong with you. I'm sorry, that's on you.
I agree. That is it from us today. We will see you again right here next week for another episode of This Week in CA Football. Enjoy the game Saturday.